The Broken Watch, Part 1, The Hourglass of Time. The ticking of the clock is the only sound that filled the room. Outside, the world moved at an unhurried pace, the breeze rustling through the trees, children laughing in the distance, and the occasional honking of cars as they navigated the winding roads. But inside the small, dimly lit study, time seemed to stand still, as if it were trapped in the confines of the watch on the table. A small gold pocket watch lay there, its cracked face hidden under the dust that had accumulated over years of neglect. It had once been a proud symbol of time, of punctuality, and of memories that were now lost to the sands of time. This was no ordinary watch. It held stories, promises, and a secret that no one had yet discovered. Emma Wilson had always felt out of place in her grandmother's old house, with its creaky floors and the smell of mothballs in the air, but today it felt different. Today she was not just visiting to sort through old belongings. She had come for something deeper, a sense of connection, something that would bridge the gap between the past and the present. As she rummaged through the old wooden desk, her hand brushed against the cold surface of the watch, and a strange sensation washed over her. Picking it up, she turned it over in her hands. The back was etched with intricate designs, patterns of swirling vines, delicate flowers, and the words, "To my dearest Emma," inscribed in elegant cursive. A gift from her grandfather, no doubt, passed down to her by her grandmother after his passing. Emma's heart ached as she stared at the watch. Her grandfather had died when she was just a child, but the memories of him were vivid in her mind. The stories he would tell her about the adventures he would had, the places he would visited, and the people he had loved. The watch, she realized, was the only tangible connection she had to him now. But why was it broken? Why had it stopped ticking? Part 2, The Unspoken Story. Emma's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps behind her. Turning around, she saw her cousin, Mark, leaning against the door frame. He was a few years older than her, and had always been the practical one, the one who did not dwell on the past or get lost in sentimental thoughts. "Found something interesting?" he asked, his voice casual, but tinged with curiosity. Emma nodded slowly, still holding the watch. "This was Grandpa's. It is broken." Mark stepped closer, his eyes scanning the watch. "I do not remember it ever working properly. It was always more of a relic than the real timepiece." He paused, his expression softening. "Do you think it still works?" "I do not know," Emma replied, her voice a little shaky. "I've always wondered, why did Grandpa keep it? It is like he was waiting for something or someone." Mark's brow furrowed. "That is a bit dramatic, do not you think?" Emma shot him a look, then stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the horizon. "I do not think so. Grandpa was not the type to keep something for no reason. He was always meticulous. Everything had its place, its purpose." Mark followed her and looked out the window too. "Maybe. But sometimes things break for a reason. Maybe it was just time for it to stop." The words hung in the air between them, but Emma could not shake the feeling that there was more to the watch than met the eye. There was a mystery here, something she needed to uncover. But she had no idea where to start. Part 3, The Journey of Discovery. Over the next few weeks, Emma found herself returning to the watch, unable to leave it behind. She began researching, poring through old letters and photographs in search of clues. Her grandmother's stories about her grandfather had always been vague, stories of a man who had traveled the world, whose charm and wit had captured the hearts of many. But there was a deeper layer to those tales, something Emma could not quite grasp. One evening, while sorting through a dusty box in the attic, Emma stumbled upon a letter, yellowed with age, sealed with wax. It was addressed to her grandmother, written in her grandfather's familiar handwriting. The letter contained no grand revelations, only a simple note. The watch is more than a gift, my love. It holds the key to a future that we must face together. Do not let the hands of time slip away unnoticed. The words made Emma's heart race. What future was her grandfather referring to? What had he meant by the hands of time? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sound, a soft clicking noise. She looked down and saw that the watch, which had been broken for as long as she could remember, was ticking again. Part 4. Confronting the Past. As the watch began to tick, the air seemed to hum with a strange energy. Emma felt a rush of excitement, but also a sense of fear. What was happening? She had to find out what her grandfather had meant. She felt an overwhelming urge to travel, to visit the places he had spoken of, to retrace his steps. But first she needed to confront Mark. She needed to tell him what had happened, even if he would not believe her. When she found him in the kitchen, she did not waste time with pleasantries. Mark, the watch? It is working again? Mark's eyes widened, but he said nothing. He simply walked over and took the watch from her, examining it closely. The tick was steady, almost rhythmic now. There was no mistaking it. Something had changed. You were right, Emma said softly. This is not just a watch. It is a message, and I think it is telling us to do something important. Part 5. The Path Forward. Mark was skeptical, but Emma's conviction was contagious. Together, they decided to follow the clues, traveling to the places her grandfather had visited, searching for answers. What they found along the way was more than they could have ever imagined. Mysteries that stretched across continents, hidden messages in the form of old letters, and even a secret society that had once been devoted to preserving the very fabric of time itself. As they pieced together the puzzle, they discovered that the watch was not just a gift. Key was a tool, a key that had been passed down through generations to guide them toward a greater purpose. It had been broken for years, but now, with Emma and Mark's combined efforts, it was beginning to reveal its true power. In the end, the journey was not just about uncovering a hidden truth. Tiwar was about discovering who they were and what they were capable of when they faced their fears and worked together. And as they stood at the edge of a new chapter in their lives, they realized that time, like the watch, was fragile, but if they used it wisely, they could shape the future. The watch ticked on, a reminder that the hands of time were never truly broken. Part 6. The First Clue. The road ahead was unclear, but one thing was certain. The ticking watch was their guide. With the letter in hand, Emma and Mark knew they had to go to the place where her grandfather had spent his youth. The letter had mentioned a location, a small, forgotten village in the Swiss Alps, where he had once stayed for a few months. It was a place he had spoken of with fondness, but never in detail. They packed their bags, gathered supplies, and booked their flights. The trip was long, but there was an urgency in Emma's chest that kept her going. Mark, though quiet, seemed to share her determination. They arrived in the village late at night, the air crisp and cold, with the smell of fresh snow in the air. The village was small, cupped between towering mountains, and the streets were eerily empty. It felt like they had stepped back in time. The next morning, they visited the local cafe where Emma's grandfather had once spent his days writing. The owner, an elderly man named Klaus, recognized the watch as soon as he saw it. He raised an eyebrow and studied it closely. You are looking for answers, are not you? Klaus said, his voice gravelly from years of smoking cigars. Emma nodded, heart racing. My grandfather, did he ever tell you anything about this watch? Klaus's eyes softened, and he motioned for them to sit. Your grandfather was not like most people. He had a way of seeing things others could not. This watch, it was part of a puzzle that has been passed down for generations. But I did not know it was still in the family. What puzzle? Mark asked, his impatience showing. The puzzle of time, Klaus replied, leaning in. The watch, it is not just a timepiece. It is a key, but it requires something more than just knowledge to unlock its secrets. It requires belief. It requires someone who understands the delicate balance between the past, present, and future. Emma felt the weight of Klaus's words. The idea of time being more than just a measure of moments was both intriguing and overwhelming. The village here, Klaus continued, has a connection to your grandfather's past. It was where he began his search, but not just for knowledge. He was searching for something lost, a part of history, a secret tied to the very fabric of time itself. Emma and Mark exchanged glances. This was the lead they had been waiting for. Part 7. The Hidden Chamber. Klaus led them to an old church on the outskirts of the village. The church was ancient, built centuries ago, its stone walls covered in ivy. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of aged wood and burning incense. The church's interior was sparsely decorated. Its most striking feature was an elaborate stained glass window depicting a scene of a man holding a pocket watch, surrounded by swirling galaxies. This is where your grandfather came, Klaus said quietly, his voice reverberating in the sacred space. He believed this church held the key to unlocking the power of the watch. Emma stepped forward, her eyes fixed on the window. What do you mean? The power of the watch? Klaus did not answer immediately. Instead, he led them to a small hidden door in the back of the church. It was concealed behind an altar, almost invisible to the untrained eye. The door creaked as it opened, revealing a narrow staircase leading downward into darkness. Your grandfather found this years ago, Klaus said, but he could not go further. He said the watch needed to be in the right hands. Emma took a deep breath, clutching the watch tightly. Let us go. The staircase wound deeper into the earth, and soon they emerged into a cavernous room. The walls were lined with ancient symbols, some familiar, some completely foreign. In the center of the room was a pedestal. On that pedestal, a stone tablet stood. It was engraved with more symbols, though none of them made sense to Emma. Mark scanned the room, his eyes flicking back to the tablet. This is where it begins. This is where the watch is meant to be. Suddenly, the room shifted. The air grew thick with energy, and the watch began to hum softly. The symbols on the walls began to glow, and the stone tablet cracked open, revealing a hidden compartment beneath it. Inside, there was a small key, a golden key, glimmering in the dim light. This key, Klaus whispered, is the final piece. It unlocks the last secret of the watch. Part 8. Final Puzzle. With the key in hand, Emma felt a surge of excitement. They had come so far, and yet the path ahead remained unclear. What could the key open? What had her grandfather been trying to uncover? She turned to Klaus for answers, but his face was etched with worry. The final step will take you to a place none of us can go, Klaus said. The watch, the key, they are meant to lead you to a location lost to history. But be warned, There are others who seek the power of time. They will stop at nothing to get it. Emma's heart skipped a beat. Who? The ones your grandfather feared most, Klaus replied, his voice barely a whisper. A secret society. They believe they can control time, manipulate it for their own gain. Time is not something to be controlled. It is something to be understood. Mark stepped forward, his expression hardening. We will not let them get it. Klaus nodded. I hope you are right. The watch is powerful, but it must be used wisely. If not, the consequences will be dire. With the key now in her possession, Emma felt the weight of her responsibility. The journey was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher, but she was not alone. She had Mark by her side, and with the lessons of the past guiding her, she knew that they could uncover a final secret. They turned and made their way back to the surface, the watch still ticking in Emma's hand, its hum now steady and sure. They had a mission to complete, and nothing would stand in their way. Part 9. The Chase. As they prepared to leave the village, Emma's phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something told her that it was not just a coincidence. She answered the call, her voice steady, despite the tension building inside her. Emma Wilson, a voice said, calm and cold. We know what you are after, and we will not let you take it. You are not the only one searching for the key. A chill ran down Emma's spine. The chase had begun. The tension was rising. Emma and Mark were now being pursued by a mysterious and dangerous organization, one that sought to control the very forces of time. Would they be able to reach the final destination and unlock the full potential of Watch before it was too late? Or would the shadowy figures behind the scenes manage to claim it for themselves? The adventure was just beginning.